Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be going over the Hyundai Ioniq 5. With that being said, let's get right into it. Let's go over the Ioniq 5. So first off, let's talk about powertrains. So there's going to be a ton of different options, just like the Kia EV6. I'm actually going to kind of talk about the Kia EV6 quite a bit in this review. But basically, you're going to have like a base powertrain. It's going to have like just over 200 miles of range. And then you can go up to the more loaded up powertrains, which will give you up to 300 miles of electric driving range. And then the base model is going to be rear wheel drive. And like the lowest configuration has like 168 horsepower. And then you can jump up and there's one with like 225 horsepower. Not something, sorry about that. And then the all wheel drive model, which has 320 horsepower. And so there's just increments you can go up. The thing I think is interesting is I haven't seen anything saying that there's going to be like a GT type version of the Ioniq 5, because obviously we've got the EV6 GT, which has 576 horsepower, but I haven't seen anything on the Ioniq 5 saying that there's going to be a GT version of this. So I don't, like, if you guys know, just comment that down below, but I haven't seen anything. So I think that'd be kind of weird that Kia gets like the highest performance version, but then Hyundai doesn't. I feel like that would kind of be unfair to Hyundai a little bit. But anyways, something else mentioned that's interesting is the Ioniq 5 actually has lower range by a little bit compared to the EV6. And it's probably because of the shape, right? The EV6 has that like sleek, kind of like sporty hatchback type design, whereas this has that boxier, more retro type design. And so, you know, it's less aerodynamic, and so range is a little bit lower. And you guys can see the like matte or satin. This is more of like a satin finish. The satin paint is very interesting on this. But yeah, you can see like the taillights and everything has that like video game type appearance. And there's been a lot of talk, and you know, which vehicle is better, this and that. So obviously there's a ton of similarities, right? The exteriors look significantly different, which is crazy. Like, you almost never see sibling vehicles that look as different as these two. I think that Kia and Hyundai have just nailed it with their design departments in terms of like differentiating them, because people that aren't in the know won't know that these are the same car. But anyways, yeah, the tons of interior similarities. Obviously the exterior is a lot different. And so it's really just going to come down to personal preference is what I'd have to say, right? Whether you like the Ioniq 5 more or the EV6 more, it's really just going to come down to which car you think looks better. And in terms of my personal preference, it's tough because I love the rear end of both of the vehicles for different reasons. And I like I love the retro styling on the Ioniq 5, right? But then I also love the sporty look on the EV6. And so if I was actually in the market for either of them, it would be a very tough choice. But I think it might come down to performance. If it's true that there's not going to be like a GT version of the Ioniq 5, then that's what would do it for me, is because I'd want to be able to get the higher performance version. So then I'd have to go EV6. But if you're able to get, you know, the highest performance version with both of the vehicles, be a very tough call for me. But you guys can see here from an interior perspective, nice from with all the materials and everything. I will mention there are some key differences with the interiors of both the vehicles. Like, there's just a couple like fit and finish differences in terms of like how they have the seats designed and stuff on the door panel, all that kind of stuff. Like all the main controls, those are all the same, and the door, they both have the same trick door handles, all that fun stuff. But I wouldn't necessarily say that one interior is nicer than the other. They're both pretty much the same. But I will say that with the Ioniq 5, they've kind of gone for more of like a luxury theme. And right, that makes sense, because with Hyundai, it's kind of like what they're placing the brand as is budget luxury, right? You've got Kia, which is like sporty, and that's why the EV6 kind of has the sportier looks and then the sportier themed interior. And you have Hyundai, which is like budget luxury, and then you have Genesis, which is supposed to be like true luxury. So there is some differentiation with that. You guys can see the pedal layout there at the bottom. And again, controls are pretty much all in the same place and everything. It's just the fit and finish on some of the buttons is a little bit different in terms of the appearance with both of the vehicles. Both have the two-spoke design with the steering wheel, which I will say I prefer the appearance of the steering wheel here in the Ioniq 5 to the EV6. I think the Ioniq 5 steering wheel just looks a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And you guys can see the center screen right there in the infotainment system. It's all kind of like in the same unit. It seems like a lot of automakers are doing this, which I don't know if I'm necessarily a fan of it. Personal preference. But definitely, functionality-wise, it works great. Infotainment system super responsive and all that. But I guess one question I'd have is, like, if one of the screens breaks but the other one doesn't, do you still have to replace the whole unit? I'm guessing, maybe, I don't know. But that's something that's kind of interesting to me if you have it all connected. And then you guys can see the controls down below. The climate controls, has dual zone climate, all that practical stuff. And it's interesting, the stop-start buttons in the vehicles are actually in different locations. So that's another interesting thing. And kind of like part of the center console area looks different with both of them as well. In terms of like the openness and everything. Like there's more, like this is like super open. Just go watch like my EV6 review so you guys can see the difference. Whereas with the EV6, it seems like there's more center console to happen, if that makes sense. So there are some different design touches with the interiors. The EV6 feels more normal than the Ioniq 5, if that makes sense. And then we've got a full panoramic sunroof. Definitely a nice option to have. And yeah, that is our quick walk around on the Ioniq 5. If you guys are wondering in these videos why the camera goes down, it's because I pick up my backpack. Funny little side note. And then you guys can see in the gloss paint the difference. So the gloss paint's more practical, right? You can actually clean it, whereas that matte paint you can't really take through car washes or anything like that. So it doesn't look as cool in the gloss, but again, it's more practical. So, setting off here in the Lexus UX 250h. So first off, what I'd like to mention, it's cool to see the hybrid info there. It's showing me what's happening, right? Whether the engine power is going to the battery or whether it's going towards powering the wheels. Pretty cool little setup. But getting up and moving here. Definitely solid, actually. Ride quality is really good. I just drove an NX before this, and this has a really nice smooth ride quality just like the NX. So that is a big plus. And going over these little bumps, yeah, super good from a suspension standpoint. Pretty quiet cabin as well. Seat comfort's great. Lexus just knows how to build very nice seats. Like the bolstering's tight enough to hold you in place so you don't feel like you're sliding all over the place, but it's also loose enough that it's not constrictive, and the leather's very plush and soft and just feels good. So it's just a very comfortable vehicle to sit in. It's one of the big positives of Lexus is you could be in this seat for just hours and you'll still be comfortable, which is great. And going over these manhole covers, yeah, it doesn't upset anything, so that is a big positive if you ask me. And then I'll actually pop it over into the sport mode right there. So gauge cluster changes a little bit, and I'll be back with you guys in a second.